if you actually listen early on and understand what the user needs, then you have a clear sense of the kind of key results you're looking for on the other side once you've actually kind of created an experience and put it out there into the world. So I think that, user testing, user interviews, actually getting the work in front of people is going to continue to be really important. We want to create experiences that are innovative. We want to create experiences that are differentiating, but we want to create experiences that also take those user needs into account.
Hello and welcome to Velocitize Talks. I'm Andy North, and today my guest is Jameson Proctor, Partner and Digital Strategy Director at Athletics. Jameson, thank you for being here.
You bet, my pleasure.
So tell us a little bit about Athletics and what you guys are up to lately and some of the things you're excited about.
Athletics is we're a creative studio based in Brooklyn, New York. Going to work at the intersection of design, technology, and strategy. Kind of across a really wide range of industry verticals. Everyone from really big multinationals like JP Morgan, IBM, ServiceNow, to smaller startups like Cul-de-sac, Hubble Contacts, and kind of everything in between. This year our focus has really been on some larger sort of account-based projects with folks like IBM, Citrix, and ServiceNow.
You have a really unique background, starting with coding on an old Apple II Plus, which I thought was great. You have a degree from the Art Institute in Atlanta, and you did some years in the culinary world. How does all of that lead you to this current role?
That's always a good question. I think I grew up at a very early age of technology, which, in the early to mid 80s wasn't really a foregone conclusion. My grandfather was an electrical engineer. He built a kit-based Apple II Plus. When he upgraded to a IIe, I inherited that II Plus, and that was sort of the whole start of the story. I actually went to the Art Institute to pursue a degree in culinary arts, and that background in technology kind of led me into a career in operations, and then as a director of technology working here in New York for Tom Colicchio. I was kind of always the guy that when something needed to be done, the restaurant site was down or the POS system wasn't working, I kind of could fill that role kind of on a moment's notice. And then I, in the early 2000s said, I'm kind of done with the long 6-day work weeks, and I'm going to turn this into a career. So
that's great.
That's where that kind of came from.
Well, you've obviously got experience in coding and with websites and so forth. One of the bigger, I guess, opportunities now is with open source.
Sure.
With WordPress and some of the other open source CMSs out there. What is your take on open source? Are you excited about it? What do you see the future holding for open source?
I'm a huge proponent of the open source movement and the open web in general. I think that when we look at where things stand today, it's really fascinating. We've got IBM buying Red Hat Linux. We have Salesforce investing in Automatic. And we probably have the largest enterprise WordPress market that we've ever seen. Not only do we see that growth across the entire web, but we're really seeing it at scale with the enterprise these days. For us, I'd say probably 6 or 7 years ago, we really made the move from custom CMSs to WordPress, and we kind of have never looked back. You guys really kind of hit the nail on the head with this concept of creative agility. We're able to be really nimble with the platform. There's really not a lot that stands in our way. And we're not really focused on the platform. What we're really focused on is realizing brand opportunities and solving business challenges with WordPress as a platform. And that's the open source movement in general, right? Whether we're looking at technologies like Apache or Nginx or Linux, it's really just changed the game in a really major way.
Athletics believes that good design should inspire meaningful change. In an age of 3-second attention spans or less, how are you keeping your creative designs relevant and using it to help your customers build their brands?
I think the thing that we've really had a lot of success with over the past handful of years is really focusing on value, especially when we're talking about kind of activation and experience and marketing. What we've really found is people respond to things that they can kind of take into their everyday lives and make use of. I think that, in some ways, there's a little bit of friction that creates between what we think about as advertising or marketing and what we think about as content. Mm-hmm. And when we look at where things stand today, you really have to kind of break down those silos. And we had a phase of what we really called content marketing, and we're still really kind of siloing the two. Traditional advertising, traditional marketing, and then content marketing on the other hand. Now I think even if we're looking at these very, very small moments of attention, we've got to try to deliver some sort of value.
Content marketing obviously has evolved. Have we gotten to a point where we're sort of at peak content marketing? There's so much content out there. How do you cut through the clutter?
The thing I'm excited about in that space in general is this rise, this evolution of what I'd call brand journalism. Right. I mean, that's sort of raising the bar from what we've kind of considered in the past to be content marketing, because you combine real journalism, real authentic, real valuable content with best-in-class design, best-in-class technology to create experiences that are on par with leaders like the Times, the Post, the Guardian, and that's where I really see the opportunity on the horizon.
From a creative standpoint, you obviously don't want to let the technology get in the way of the creative, but you do want to let the technology enable the creative. Mm-hmm. Are there any technologies out there that you're excited about or you see coming into the fore within the next few years?
We've been really excited about React. I think there are some challenges around the library itself. But what we're actually able to do with the React library and how we're able to kind of really tie that to strategic and creative ideas and bring them to life in really performant ways on the front end is pretty amazing. And if you combine that with, the headless WordPress, with what's, kind of evolved from that REST API, you can really put together some very powerful solutions. And I really see that that's going to have some staying power, and it's going to be here for the next several years.
Everyone's chasing after personalization.
Sure.
Now, what are your thoughts on personalization, and do you see us becoming any closer to it over the next few years?
You'd like to think with this sort of phase of digital transformation that the web and business in general is going through. Automation, machine learning, AI are basically platform services that we can turn on pretty easily now. I think that those are all key ingredients into actually making personalization something that has a pretty short time to market. Really incurs a pretty manageable technical debt, both from a cost of ownership and from an actual kind of resources required to maintain and get insights out of. Mm-hmm. All of those things kind of come together to hopefully make personalization something that can be used in a much more meaningful fashion. I think right now it's a promise, and we have all of the parts and pieces that we need to actually kind of make good on that promise. But I think that people are still having a hard time understanding how to put them together in a way that help realize opportunities and solve for challenges.
Some have said that websites are kind of going the way of the dodo bird and they'll be replaced by a new technology. What are your thoughts on websites and the future of websites in general?
Well, I think they've already changed, right? For the lack of something that's quite young in the scheme of human history, I think there's an archaic sort of perspective sometimes of what a website is, right? Mm-hmm. And so if we think about, a website as a digital brochure or, this sort of rather static experience, then sure, that thing's gone the way of the dodo bird. If we think of, a website as a product, we think of it as a platform, we think of it as an omni-channel through which we can effectively communicate to our audience, then I think that, what we talk about when we talk about a website will still remain a part of, kind of the key marketing experiences and touch points for brands. Will it be the, central touch point? I don't think so. But if we can house all of our content in an omni-channel and we can broadcast that out to wearables, to apps, to smart TVs, and we can use that same platform to also power a site experience, then I think we're doing pretty good.
One of the trends that we've seen coming to the fore lately has been values-based marketing, where brands are starting to lead with their values, such as Nike with Colin Kaepernick and so forth. I know that one of your digital projects involved Every Town for Gun Safety, which is obviously a values-based campaign. Do you feel it is going to continue, or is it should brands continue to stay on the sidelines from a values perspective?
That's a challenging question, right? It's personally, if I answer that question personally, I'd love to see more of that. If I answer that question, from a pure professional perspective, I think that has to go through kind of the standard gauntlet of kind of strategic and business goal-oriented thought. For us, when I think about our own business, it's important for our studio to do work that we feel goes out into the world and does some good. That's why we take on projects like Every Town for Gun Safety. That's why we've worked in the past with Code Nation, an organization that provides mentoring and technology education in underrepresented communities. That's why we work with organizations like the Execute Institute, who are really trying to solve for the challenges that we see in the American high school.
One of the questions we like to ask all our guests is there a book, a blog, or a podcast that you've been reading or watching that you'd like to share with our viewers?
It's almost the end of the year, and I'm rereading right now Measure What Matters by John Doerr. John Doerr was kind of a disciple of the late, great Andy Grove from Intel, and has kind of gone on to become kind of the guru of OKRs. And it's really a great collection of, not only process around, what values or what value OKRs bring to organizations and companies, but really amazing, really powerful anecdotes. Whether it's about the adoption of OKRs at Google in the very early days, or the way in which very, very small kind of bootstrap startups were able to kind of apply OKR systems to take things from the garage, to kind of nationwide and global prominence.
Excellent. Thank you for sharing that. My guest today has been Jameson Proctor with Athletics. Jameson, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks so much.